Hello and welcome back to the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Jack.
I'm Buzz.
I'm Zak.
And as you can hear, listeners, Zak is in the gallery this evening.
I am. I'm recording this episode.
So anyway, we'll speak to you later, Zak.
See ya.
So in this episode, we are posing the question of what is a ghost?
Ooh.
So with great pleasure, we're introducing our special guest in the studio, Mickey Boulden, spiritualist medium and paranormal investigator. Welcome, Mickey.
Hello, good evening.
And you're going to help us and the listeners to discover, hopefully by the end of this episode, what is a ghost.
Yes, hopefully.
Hopefully. So let's start off with asking you exactly what is a spiritualist medium and paranormal investigator.
Right, I started out with I've always got a huge thirst for knowledge and information, and if there's something unexplained, I want to know the answer to it. I don't believe in magic. I believe there's a science behind everything. So I've been trying to prove to myself, there's so much talk about ghosts and spirits and things throughout time for hundreds and hundreds of years, going back thousands, when we hear different stories and in poetry and all sorts of things about monsters and that kind of thing. But where does all this come from? There are too many coincidences where people have experienced a ghost or something unexplained, but what's it all about? That led me to the world of spiritualism, because I wanted an answer. I need an answer to everything. And I thought, okay, let's go with an open mind here. After listening to several spiritualist mediums bring through information to people that they couldn't possibly know, and information to me that they couldn't possibly know, with me as a total stranger, that was so precise, it got me thinking, what's this all about? Is it a psychic link, or is there something more?
Interesting. Well, I kind of looked at your job title, if you like, where we invited you in, and it kind of separates itself up into those two different categories, because
Yes.
if I had a great interest in the paranormal, then I could choose to follow that, to go on ghost hunts, shall I say,
Yep.
become a paranormal investigator, or if I was an individual who's very much based in science from a university, I might want to do paranormal investigations to see the scientific side of things. But then when we look at the spiritualist medium side, that's kind of, I saw that as something completely different. You know, like anybody can be a paranormal investigator, but to be a spiritualist medium, can anybody be one of those? Or is that something you kind of have to be born with an ability or gain an ability to be able to, well, for want of a better word or way of putting it, to be able to communicate with...
Can you train to become a medium?
Yeah, can you train, or do you have to have
Yes.
an ability to be able to communicate from the other side of the veil, so to speak?
They say everybody can. It's about how open your mind is to these things.
Right.
So what intrigued me was coincidences in my life and things that couldn't be explained, little hints and things that made me think there's something going on I don't understand. So one of my early experiences was in my early teens. I used to get, if I'd had an argument, was really angry, like lots of teenagers are when they're about 12 or 13 or 14, I'd go to my room and slamming the door, and my room would smell of cigarette smoke. No one in our house smoked. The neighbours didn't smoke. Windows shut. Stank of smoke. Real proper tobacco smoke. I thought, oh, that's odd. Didn't really think anything of it. And then I started, after a while of having strops every week at various times, but the smoke was there again. So I started to think, well, there's a pattern here. Is it to do with me being angry that's causing this? What is it? And in the end, one day, I spoke to, and then it was also if you'd had, like, if something upsetting had happened in the family or outside the family or something, or if I felt insecure about something, this smell would appear. To the point my mum smelt it outside my bedroom door, and she said, I can smell it. I told her about it.
She
I can
didn't
smell
think
it.
you were having a quick fade on the
No,
side.
she didn't. No.
It wasn't an elaborate hoax, mate.
No, it wasn't,
Well, no,
no.
Mum, I'm not smoking
And-
really. It's
No,
just-
and I did have to do things like take into account, because back then it was when, towards the end, when I was still smelling this smoke in my late teens, that's when obviously the smoking ban hadn't come into place. So you go out clubbing and come back in your house and stink of
I was
stink of
going
fags.
to say, I used to have the same experience when I got back from the pub, and on the
Yeah.
Sunday morning, you'd wake up and go,
God,
No, it
yeah, and you
smells
don't
of
notice it when you get home. So I ruled all these things out, and then one day my mum could actually smell it, and I thought, what is this?
I need to ask, this is the same house, you haven't
Oh
moved?
yeah, no,
Is it?
this
Is it
is the same house. It's the same house. And so I said, in the end, I just said, right, what's this? I thought maybe it's someone visiting.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they be visiting me?
A physical person? Or are you thinking, or are you talking a spirit?
Spirits. I thought, well, there's something. This smell is coming from somewhere, and obviously there's links. There's links to smells and spirits.
So,
People
and
smell.
what age were you about this?
Early teens, and it went
Early
right
teens.
through
So
my
you
teens.
already must have had a kind of an interest in this at that
Yeah,
time
I-
for you
well,
to,
no, I-
for your mind to leap to that.
Well, I
Is that-
started to figure it out over time. It took a while, and then in the end, I thought, well, if it's coming here to help, or coming here because it's concerned, or there's a link,
between your anger,
yeah,
and
or my concern or feeling insecure about something,
Right.
is it someone coming to comfort me?
so it wasn't just because you got angry.
No,
it happened
it
on
was
other
various
occasions.
things. If I was upset, all sorts of
Right.
things. So then I said, not that I cried all the time, but let me just understand, I wasn't some emotional wreck. But then I just said to him, I'm okay. I am okay. Don't worry, I'm fine. Within 20 seconds, the smell had gone.
Wow.
And then you think, what?
There's definitely a correlation.
Did
Once
you have
that-
any?
It happened on other occasions,
so-
and then the smoke smell. Then I stopped smoking. No, then the smoking smell stopped completely after the acknowledgement.
So did you have any? I mean, when you listen to any documentaries on this subject or see any films, you get those kind of tropes that come up, like a cold patch,
Yeah.
and things like that. Did that
Feel a
was it-
chill or
feel a
something.
chill?
We
Was it
didn't have
anything
any
like that?
heating, it was always freezing anyway, so it really was an old Victorian terrace house with no heating at all.
So
apart from
did
some
you
gas
suddenly go,
fires.
I'm standing in the warm patch.
It was
This is
always
very odd.
that was a miracle. If there was a warm patch, I tell you, I wouldn't have left it. But no, so there wasn't really anything else, and I didn't really know what I was looking for. Anyway, this carried on, and then it kind of slipped from my memory to a point, because then, you know, you buy a house, get a job, live a bit,
Yeah.
get broke,
Yeah.
buy a Dalek,
Buy a
all
Dalek.
that kind of thing. And
I
then
think we've all done that.
and then, then it was literally, it was about 10 years ago, and I thought, no, actually longer ago than that, I went on a ghost hunt.
Right.
So I thought, right, let's see what's going on here. So I went on this ghost hunt, arranged one, in Northampton, at Northampton Guildhall, which is a wonderful old Gothic Victorian building. Really worth going to visit people. And they used to have old cells downstairs and all this kind of thing. It was all prearranged. And so we did the whole, is there anyone in the room? It's all very Most Haunted, you know. And I'd been watching Most Haunted and thinking, that had kind of drawn me into it, thinking, what is real here?
Yeah.
That can be
I
explained.
mean, you can
I think
watch a
there
lot
was-
of those programs, and they
Yeah.
can have a bit of a fake feel to you.
Yeah.
Yes, and certain bits, and you go, no, you're talking rubbish there. I can
Because
see
I
that's
don't
not right.
necessarily feel they
Yeah.
do
No,
do your a service to.
no, but it got me interested. It kind of drew in the imagination side of it
Yeah.
that you have to separate it from. So I went on this ghost hunt thinking, right, oh yeah, they're doing all the things to do on Most Haunted. And the most that happened was we sat in this cell in pitch black at 1 a.m. and it went stone cold, and suddenly where we could, you know, usually when you adjust to being in the dark, you
Yes.
start to see things. You can like see the outlines of windows, things like that. When you first turn the light out, it's pitch black.
Yeah.
Well, when we turned the light out, you could just see the opening of the door because the cell door was open very faintly. But then suddenly it went cold and we couldn't see anything.
Oh, wow.
So the
How
opposite.
many were you? in
There were
your-
3 of us in
Three
that.
of us. Right.
And it did the opposite to what's normal.
Okay.
That was the only thing in this thing that happened. And I thought, well, that's
So
odd.
you're seeing this. How did you communicate with the other 2? Did you all say?
One of them said,
Where's the door
The
gone?
door's gone.
The door's
it's gone really, really cold. And look how dark it's gone. And I was like, yeah, that's happened to me as well. It's not just me.
Right.
So that was about all. so we couldn't really get anything. Then we went back up, and this is where the
So
spiritualist.
how long did that last?
Probably about 5-10 minutes,
Right,
and then we were just we could see the door again. So then we went back upstairs, and they said, it was now like 2 a.m. and it was Halloween as well, or something like that. We were absolutely exhausted, and they said, right, we can do a séance now. There are probably about 30 people together on this ghost hunt, so we're going to do a séance now. Would you have any volunteers? So I will. Absolutely crazy. Why did I say this? So they got there were 4 of us around this table in the middle of the room.
Is it like depicted when people listening to this? They've probably all got that idea of what a séance looks like.
Oh, right. So there were 4 of us around a small table, standing around a small table in the middle.
So we're standing up, right?
Standing up. And then there was a square of tables, just rectangular tables, making up a square around the outside. And everyone else was sitting around there. So we were like a circle within a circle. And they all had to link pinkies, so to
they
speak.
were touching fingers.
They were touching fingers, so to speak. And, well, I did know, it was very dark. And then the 4 of us around this table, we had one card. There were 2 cards on the table. One said yes and one said no. We had glass on the table. And I was like, right, what do I think you always told? Don't play with all this kind of thing. The Victorians did it.
Yeah.
Oh, what? And I thought, right, there's lots of people here. Let's give it a go. It's not my house, whatever. And I said we should, if we're going to make this glass move, I want to do it by putting the back of my finger on the top of it. So it's my fingernail, the flat of my fingernail is touching the top of this. You can't get a grip with that, can you?
No one can push it around.
No, you can't. And we tried first. And we can't. So then they said, right, what you need to do is build energy. So I've never done anything like this before. So we had to put the main part of our finger down to move it round and round around in circles, get really, really fast. And they said, right, everyone focus, imagine you're pulling energy in from all around you and all this. So you have to imagine, just go with it, let's see what happens. And so we're doing this, and round and round and round, and they said, right, now stop. And we stopped moving the glass, turned our fingers over, put our nail on the top. Is there anyone there who would like to communicate with us? And I cannot tell you how quickly that glass moved to yes. We'd all picked the glass up before. We looked under the table, looked at the cards, all being sceptical. Are you a believer? Yes, we all are. Pretending, but in your mind, I've not done this before. There must be a trick to this. And
did you know the other 3 people? Okay,
no.
Yeah.
So they weren't friends of yours?
No
connection at all?
No. So it just literally shot to yes. And it kept going, and it was sort of vague questions. I'm trying to remember what the questions were, because I've had other experiences since now, but this was the one that made me think, okay, this is a spiritualist side of it, that is there a link? And then it said, could you move the glass to the person that you are connected to? And where did the glass move? Straight over to me. And I stood there absolutely terrified, going, why me? There's like 30, nearly 40 people in this room, and it's come to me. I was a little bit nervous. So then they said, ask questions, who are you, blah, blah, blah. And through the questioning, from what I could make out, it was my granny, so my dad's mother.
Yep.
Was the only way, are you female? It's a process like Guess Who, isn't it, really? But we don't do you wear glasses, or and all this. And then it kept moving to me, like the glass was getting agitated, and said, she wants to tell you something. And it was like literally just kept moving to me.
Who's telling you this?
Oh, this is the person leading it. So I'm like, do you want to tell? And you try and trick it and all this kind of thing. And then it would answer correctly. It just kept answering everything. And I said, oh, I know. I said, what was, I asked it a question about 3 possible films that we'd watched one Easter.
Right, so you had a close relationship with your grandmother.
Yeah, I remembered
so you
a particular film. I said, the day that my dad, you had an argument with my dad, I said to her...
So if someone was to be moving it manually, then they wouldn't have any idea.
They wouldn't know which it was, so I was constantly going, okay, I'm not... I want the truth of this. Is there something in it?
I want to know. I'm intrigued which movie it is.
And I kept thinking, it was The Wizard of Oz. It was a film she hadn't seen for years and years. It was on television. And she said, I'd love to see The Wizard of Oz. And she had an argument with my dad. He went upstairs for a strop. And I said, which film was it? I can't remember what Gone with the Wind, something. I would just make off the top of my head, slap that one in the middle. And it went, no, yes, no. And it said yes. I'm like, right, okay, 1 of 3, who knows? So that got me really intrigued. But it still kept. And then the glass would then move right up to the table to me, would move back to me, and it kept moving to me. And it was like...
What are you trying to...
It's like there's something more, and it can only say yes or no. And I said, are you okay? Yes. I didn't know, what do you say to a dead person who suddenly appears? You know, if they're trying to communicate, what do you say? I didn't know what to say. Yeah. And it was really difficult. And I said, oh, I love you. And it went to yes. And I was like, all emotional like you do. But I didn't really know what else to say. And I kept trying to figure out what it was. Anyway, and then it kind of all settled down. So I thought, well, maybe that's what she was trying to say. I don't know.
Do you get to a point where you break the communication?
Then you go, they said to me, is there anything else you want to say? Well, I don't really know what to say. And I said, that's what I said, I love you kind of thing. And then it went to yes. And then it didn't really, nothing came through for anyone else. And it just completely went flat then. So I thought, okay, so what do I know? So I summed up everything. I've had experiences of smoke, so someone come for comfort. And that was before my granny passed away, because she passed away when I was 19. So it was before then, but then carried on after. Also, this strange experience. So I thought, right, there's something. Then it kind of went on the back burner a bit for a couple of years. Then, about 10 years ago, a friend of mine was going, you've got to come to the Spiritualist church. You've got to come. I'm going to go and see a demonstration of mediumship. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. I'll go and see. You know, I want to see how they pick out the information from everyone, because I was a bit of a skeptic, and I thought I didn't want to go to one of these shows that people pay a fortune for. I thought I'm going to go to the local Spiritualist church where people actually, it's a religion. It's a recognised religion. People actually believe in this. I want to know the science behind this, see where all this has come from. A really lovely place, really welcoming, really calm, like churches are, whether you're religious or not. It's always a very nice, calm, cool, relaxed place. And so they had this guest medium up, and she was she spoke to, I can't remember which meeting it was, but she'd go around, there were probably about 40, 50 people in the congregation. They have to sing a hymn at the start to boost the energy in the room. So I'm like, yeah, go along with this. Fantastic. My first time, very sceptical. And then the medium comes up and she starts looking around the room. She goes, over here on the right, so it's the right-hand side of the room in front of us, the other side of the aisle from where I was sitting. She's going, I've got this lady come through. She's an older lady. I believe she's connected to you over there, and pointed to this woman about 5 or 6 rows back. Okay, I could do that. Make some money. And then she said, grandmother figure. I'm like, yeah, it could be. Most people she was probably in her 40s. I thought, yeah, most people have probably lost a grandmother by that age, you know. Trying not to be sceptical, but trying to keep an open mind. And then she said, you got married, didn't you? Not long after this person passed away. She said probably a couple of years after. And she said, does that make sense? I said, yeah. And she said, she didn't meet your partner, did she? No. And then she said, she likes him. She's a really good looking man. I think, yeah, butter her up. I'm thinking in my head. She said, she's really nice. He's really nice. Quite a big guy, like a big bear. You could cuddle him. She said, she likes a big man to cuddle. Does your grandma? And she was like, yeah. And she did call it. And what did you? Because she did call her grandma. Yeah, it was grandma. And then she said, I don't know if you can take this, she said, but she says she was very close to your wedding cake. Very, very close. Right. And she went, yes, I can take that. She's very close, right next to her. Yeah. And then she said, but there was something not traditional about the cake. She said, there wasn't a bride and groom on top, was there? And the woman goes, no, there wasn't. And then the woman, because they always say, you don't need to tell us things, just say if you can take it, because the message is for that person, it's not for the medium. Okay. And then she says, yeah, and I just want to say, her photo was next to the wedding cake.
Wow.
So I'm there going, right, okay. So if I'm going 50-50 with my little brain scales here about whether it's true or not, things are tipping slightly that there's something going on here that isn't quite explained.
It's very specific information.
It was the specific, and they say, they draw it out.
Can I ask? Did you have any friends or family with you at this meeting, this church?
I'm trying to remember. I think I had a friend of mine there. Yeah, I had a friend of mine. Yeah.
Would they have been at your wedding?
No, it wasn't my wedding.
No, it was at the wedding you're talking about. So you were the only person who had known these facts as well.
No, I didn't know. So, sorry, I see what you mean. No, I didn't know these people. So
Right.
it could have been. So I'm like, okay, but the reaction from this woman and the tears, they were happy tears, and her mum was with her, and the tears and everything, the reaction, I thought, well, they're, are they, you kind of go, are they acting? Do they know them?
Right.
The medium was from elsewhere, and people just come in randomly. It's a drop-in. So I thought, well, who knows? I took a friend of mine along another time, and she had something very specific come through about her mother and something that she'd been left, including her mother's name was mentioned. And she was too frightened initially to speak up because she was really nervous. Something about something that was under her bed every night that her mum had left her. It was either she said something very close to you every night. It's either a watch, gold watch, or a bracelet. Yeah, it was in a box under a bed. And there were things like this.
So this really led
right down to a song that she didn't want to listen to because it reminded her, without going into detail because I haven't spoken to her about this, but there was a song, an easy listening song that the woman said, it's a song like, and we both knew what that was. I looked at her and she looked at me. I knew exactly what it was because I knew really well. And it was personal stuff that this woman couldn't possibly.
And you didn't know about this?
I knew I did. I knew some of the bits.
Okay.
So I knew some of the details. I knew the bit about the song and I knew her mother's name.
Yep.
Didn't know the bit about the bracelet. So so we try and keep a straight face, not laugh. No, we try not to give anything away that you're going, oh my God, this is real. And all this. And I'm going, right. So now I've seen it done to someone else. Yes, they could be acted. Now I've seen it done to a friend of mine who was very sceptical.
So this is starting to solidify your...
Yeah, there's something else.
And she couldn't have possibly been one of the actors of... You wouldn't...
No,
exactly.
God, no.
Yeah.
She couldn't act for Toffee. Bless her. Bless her. So then I went regularly. It's about once a month they do an open mediumship thing. And then I went along on my own. And I can't remember who I went with. I went with someone. And this medium looks at me and she goes, I've got a message for you. And oh, God, what is it? And she said, and this is really odd because what was coming through, I didn't know this person. But there were elements of what she told me that were spot on. So it was really odd. She came through, she said, I've got this person who's come to speak to you. He really wants to speak to you. She said, I'd say when he passed into the world of spirit, he would have been about 25 years old. Generally wears a T-shirt and like a suit jacket kind of thing, quite trendy with jeans. She said, I get the impression that he was a hairdresser when he was alive, blah, blah, blah. Do you know anyone? No. I literally know a handful of
Nothing was
people.
coming to mind.
No, and people younger than me, or and all this. I said no, and then she said, I feel that there was a chest. I could feel the chest tightening. Possibly, she said, steering wheel potentially from impact.
Right,
she said,
so-
I'm not going to go into any more details, but can you take this? And no.
Nothing.
You couldn't think of any
Absolutely.
car accident that you knew
No,
anybody...
well, I knew somebody had been in a car accident, but he didn't fit with anything else. It was completely wrong. She'd got black hair, blah, blah, blah. Nothing fitted at all. Age was wrong for the person. I didn't fit at all. I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know anything. And then she said, right. She said, he's desperate to talk to you, but we'll go to someone else and we can come back if you're still there. And then she looked at me and he's just shouted out Michael. Of course, that's my name, Mickey, Michael. And I said, that's my name. And she goes, no, this is his name. Right. And I thought, if she was trying to pull a fast one here, she could have gone, yes, I know he's calling your name.
Yeah.
Because I'd confirmed that was my name. I said, that's my name.
Yeah.
And she said, no, this is his name.
Okay.
I'm like, right.
So you're
and she's
scanning everything in your mind.
And
at
I'm
this
going,
point.
so she goes off to talk to someone else. I'm thinking, what on earth is this? It doesn't make any sense at all. She comes back and she said, the name Michael is very prevalent within your life. And certain things that have come into your life recently are all linked. So Michael thought, don't really shop at Marks and Spencer's St Michael's. Like St Michael's biscuits.
You've not been down to St Michael's Mount or anything like that?
No, why? Then I realised we're in St Michael's Road
Right.
in Northampton. I parked my car in St Michael's car park. Me and my friend, a friend of mine who we'd been doing like card readings, practicing a bit, which I'll come on to in a minute. But we tried he put some spiritualist music on just to see randomly, did a random search, put someone in the background at home.
Is there special spiritualist music?
Oh, there's all sorts of spiritualist. It's just all this chill out. So it's really nice. There's all sorts of different ones. And they're all linked to different. And I'd been to buy, so he put this music on. I'd also been and bought these spiritualist cards because they said sometimes if you want to do readings, things like that, a prop can kind of give people confidence rather than before they just speak. So I was like, yeah, give it a go. And it was all very vague and everything. But the cards I picked were Archangel Michael cards. And I picked these long before.
So
I just thought...
We've got a theme coming here, haven't
So
we?
I just went to the shelf and saw the boxes and just thought, they look all right. I didn't even read it and thought, they'll do. I'm starting out. Go home, Archangel Michael. Then the music he put on was Archangel Michael.
I was going to say, you put George Michael on
No,
there.
George Michael. But it was like, so, right, there's lots of connections. This person saying his name's Michael. What is this? What is going on? And then this is where the connection started to come and has left open many unanswered questions, which we still don't have answers to. She said, he really wants to talk to you. She comes back to me. I said, but I don't know who he is. Who is this person? I was laughing. I couldn't say as I do. I said, I just don't know who this person is. She goes, he knows you. He's with you all the time. She said, I feel like he travels with you. She said, I feel he's a spirit guide and he watches over you. And I'm like, okay, I've heard of this kind of thing, but how much do I believe? I was a bit sceptical. And then she said, he travels with you. I said, right. She said, recently, at the time, I'd been travelling a long way for work and it had got too much. I'm quite happy in the job I'm in now. It's a very different type of travel. But going to one place every day and it was a long drive and I couldn't be doing with it anymore. And then, so I packed that job and got a job on my doorstep. It was about 5 minutes away in the car. And I was I was knackered by the time I came back. And she said, he's been following you in the car, supporting you, travelling with you. She said, you've been driving an awful long way to work. He feels your tiredness, he feels your stress, he feels your strain. She said, but recently he's much happier because you've now returned to a local employment.
So I'm still intrigued. We want to know who this Michael is, or don't you? Is it just a spirit guide?
Has anything come up recently or since then?
Well, she said to me, so I said, right. And she said, sometimes he makes you jump. I'm like, what? She said, he makes you jump. She said, do you ever get to like a junction? Do you ever feel the presence of someone next to you sitting in the passenger seat? And I said, no. It wasn't till after this event when I was gone home thinking about it. And the number of times I'd get to a T-junction, just before I got home, I'd turn to look left to see if anything coming, jump out of my skin, nothing. You know when someone makes you jump and there's someone sitting next to you and you react, you go, whoa! I was reacting like that, but there was no one there and I didn't register there was anyone there, but my body reacted as if there had been someone there.
Did you do this before she mentioned this to you?
Or? Oh, yeah, yes. So it related when I left.
Just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, when I left,
she hadn't
I
put
thought,
a subconscious kind of message in your mind and then it started
No,
to
it wasn't.
go.
No, so it wasn't till I left. I'm going down the street. I said, what does she mean travel with me? And then I was like, yeah, did you sense him in the car? She said, I said, well, no. And it wasn't till a bit later I thought, I have, but I didn't know what I was sensing.
Didn't think anything.
If that's what it was. But the
Yeah.
reaction, I've never had anything else like it. You know when you jump out of your skin when someone really jumps you. But my brain did not register there was someone there because I couldn't see anyone there. So I thought, okay, I've had an interesting reaction. She said, he comes to you, has done for many years. And he passed away when he was about 25. He's come to you. She said, usually comes with a scent of cigarettes.
Oh, no. Oh, we've gone right back
So
to
I'm
the
like,
beginning.
right, okay.
We've gone right back to the beginning here.
So by this time, I'm completely perplexed, going, what is this? What's going on? And so then I joined at the Spiritualist Club. They have an open circle so you can go and try doing readings for people. It's all completely relaxed. And lady who ran it said, just open your mind and talk if you feel you need to talk. And it's a drop-in, there'd be like 10 people there. It's great. Really chilled, everyone a bit nervous. And we did things like we had Christmas. It was near Christmas. We had these Christmas cards in envelopes. And she said, right, I want you to pick one of these envelopes up, hold it, and talk to the person opposite you about what you feel about this card. Not the picture that's on it, but what the picture gives you.
Right, so it's rather than being like one of those ESP tests where you're going to guess the card, what's the picture.
Yeah,
This is
it was what sensation, what feeling. So I got, the first one I got, it's like really, really red, right, radiating out from the centre of the card. I said, but it's also got really like cold and prickly sensation. I don't know what this
I'm feeling
is.
holly with snow on now.
It was a robin
Yep.
sitting on a holly bush,
Right, with snow on it.
and there was snow on it.
There you go.
So, yeah, very well. It's a Christmas card.
You-
What made it about this was I said it felt really artificial and odd.
Right.
I kept saying when we were talking about, so it's radiating, it feels really artificial. There's something not right about it. And when we actually looked at it, it was a really rubbish picture.
Really rubbish.
Clearly being photoshopped on and looked artificial and plastic, how it was, the picture was done, it was rubbish. That's what I picked up on, not knowing what the picture was. So it was all to do with picking up these vibes to help you like extend with that. I'm like, right, I can do that. Other times when we get into
And this is you discovering your skills, if you like.
Yes.
For want of a better word.
Yes, and they said it's about just opening your mind.
So
Not
these are the skills you've developed, or
possibly. That
or
was
is
the first time I'd done that.
going back to your smoke back in
Yeah.
your bedroom.
Yes.
Is it possible that you were already attuned?
Yes, but I don't think I knew how to
But you
use it,
didn't.
and I still don't fully.
This
but
is
I
kind,
get
this is kind of
snippets.
leading on to me asking, again, touching upon, is it something that certain people are attuned to? And what you're describing to us is you developing your skills?
Yes.
Your sensitivity maybe would be...
I think it is about tuning in, and I
Or is
think
it
the
just
trouble
that
is
some people completely aren't, therefore it's much easier for them to go, nah, this is...
I think there's a mix. I
spectrum.
think some people go, no, it's absolute rubbish because they're frightened to believe.
Okay.
Some.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Yeah, because it's easy to run it. Oh, no,
Well,
because it's something they
that-
don't want to address. Maybe they've had experiences themselves.
Could be, or it could even be from a religious perspective.
Yes.
That is all to do with maybe more to do with the dark side, the devil, and things like that. Yeah. So if
possibly.
they're very religious, they
And how they're brought up, their
Yeah,
background, what they've been
exactly.
told. And then I think there's other people who are just like, oh, it's a load of rubbish. They're
Oh,
just
yeah.
not interested. If you've got it's a load of rubbish, or you're terrified, you're not going to open up your mind, are
Yeah.
you? So it's blocked off.
There's
So we
always
don't
gonna
know
be-
if they're capable. It's the person's attitude.
well, you're going to get that in an awful lot of subjects. You know.
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Flat earthers.
Don't mention the flat earth.
Oh, no.
That's a good question. Are there ghosts within the flat? A question for another day.
Yeah, maybe they're brainwashed. I don't know. Sorry. Open mind. Who
2D
knows?
ghosts.
So, so the whole spirit thing, looking back on it as well, there's lots of things that we don't know. And years ago, there's loads of stuff we didn't know that over time that humanity has discovered. I bet in about another 300 years, they'll be saying, oh, look at that lot back there. They didn't know
Well,
anything. Do you
again,
think?
I mean, if you talk pseudosciences, which and then they become sciences, an example of that would be, for example, alchemy.
Yes.
Trying to turn lead into gold, etc., etc., where people didn't have the knowledge of chemistry,
Yeah.
but that's what we have now is chemistry. So you can say that back in the time where people were using alchemy and you were an alchemist, whatever that alchemist was doing would have been the recognised and accepted, if you like, science at the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now we've come down the ages that alchemy has become understood chemistry.
Yes.
And when we look back at alchemy and go, well, obviously a lot of that was complete,
Yeah.
crazy. They were just trying to sort of say, well, if I mix this with that and then whatever, and it'll make you better. And no, it didn't really do anything for you at all. So, progression opens doors and a wider and more grounded understanding of things.
I think so.
But certainly within this area that we're discussing, there is a lot of...
There's a lot going on that I can't get a direct answer to, and there's things that only I would have known that have come through.
So-
I did a reading for someone a while ago, or a few years ago. It was around about this time because I was just really hyped up. I haven't done as much recently, but I did a reading, and it was like, oh, go and do it. I'm like, it's not a freak show, I'm not gonna.
Not performing.
I'm not performing. I can't just do it.
Get your Ouija board out.
Speaking of that,
No,
we can
well,
talk about that.
I was going to mention that in a bit, but it's
But-
my telephone just decided to retype Ouija to Luigi.
right,
It was
okay.
rather comical at the time.
So, I did a reading and said, look, he said, tell me something. I said, okay. I said, I see an old man. I'm really quick. You have to, and the lady at the church had said, open your mind, speak the words that come out, and don't think about them. Just say it, because the message isn't for you. It's for someone else.
You're acting as kind of like a
translator.
A translator, yeah, from
kind
another
of thing.
Yeah.
So I said, right, I'm seeing this old man. I said, he's abroad somewhere warm, possibly Spain, somewhere like that. And Spain or somewhere like that. And I said, he's standing on a runway in front of a plane. And I can hear that song, Should I Stay or Should I Go Now?
Yeah, from The Clash.
And he went white as a sheet. And I said, right. I said, okay. He said, can I tell you? I said, you don't have to tell me. The message is for you. It's not for me. I don't want to. He said, I want to tell you. I said, okay. His granddad had recently passed away. He lived in Spain. The family couldn't decide whether to bring the body back to England or to fly him home or not.
Oh, wow.
So I sat there going, I didn't even know his granddad had died. Didn't I? And there have been a few bits like that. Have I got like strong messages? No, just like a little snippet so that they're okay.
So is that when you're like, as we say, translating a message and you say it's just instant? You just is it like an image you get in your head, or is it kind of like? I've seen
images of things.
Is it just? Did you have the image of a runway or
vague? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Vague. I saw a plane on a runway, and I kind of sensed an old man.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't like, was he wearing a hat or
it was just,
you need to go. Yeah. But as I started to do it, I could see it meant something to him, and I could have gone into more detail if I really thought about it. But then there's other things, and you see symbols of things that don't mean something. So it might be like, I saw one, I was talking to someone once, and all I could visualise was like an egg timer, and just as the sand almost ran out, the egg timer would swivel over again and start running. When it had almost run out, it turned out family bailing them out financially.
Right.
This person that they were worried about.
Okay. So you've got a connection to the spirit world. Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
You think so?
Well, I'm pretty sure I have.
Pretty sure you have.
Exactly how or what this is.
So we've obviously got a spirit world, but coming back to what is a ghost, is a spirit that you're talking to, communicating with, because what you've described so far is you've not actually said that you've seen a corporeal, could you call it corporeal?
Apparition.
An apparition.
Yeah.
So are the spirits you're communicating with, in your field, do you classify those spirits as ghosts, or is a ghost when we think traditionally about what you imagine?
The sheet with two holes cut in.
Or the white lady in the window, or the monk that's walking through a wall of an abbey. What is there a difference there?
Right. Well, I think the smoke, that smoke smell. There's certain things they say.
So do you think that smell was an actual smell, or do you think that in itself was kind of a...
I could almost see the haze in my room.
And you said your mother smelt it as well?
She smelt it too, and she said, because I told her about this, and she went upstairs and she knocked on my door. She said, I can smell it. And I was like, yeah, it is now. She didn't know it was that day at that time.
Can I ask, have you discovered that your mother has also got some kind of connection, or would she be a person who is completely...
Oh, no, she's open to this.
Right.
I took her to the Spiritualist church, and we actually did, which is another long story, we did some spiritualist healing at the church, and she was actually very in tune with spiritual healing, which is a recognised form of alternative medicine. She tried it once, and that was fine. That's not really her thing, but she was interested.
So you've got two people that have got a similar
open to something,
and you both smell that smell. So but it wasn't. Was it necessarily? And you say you maybe saw the haze, but would somebody else have seen that, or were you sensing something?
I think it was meant. If someone's trying to communicate with me that everything was okay, that they're there, or it appeared to be there, if that's what it was, I could, that you did the job. So does anyone else need to see that? Okay. And also, is that amount of energy. Now, the theory with ghosts, I heard it was actually Bill Roach from Coronation Street, William Roach, the actor. He is a spiritualist medium, and he was a guest speaker a while ago, and a friend of mine heard him speak, and he said, just because you're listening to Radio 2 doesn't mean Radio 1 doesn't exist. You're just not tuned into it. And I thought, that's really powerful kind of theory. There's lots of stuff going on that we could receive here if we were tuned into it. including telephone signal, all sorts of signals
It's all the
whizzing
time
about.
I've been thinking, I've been watching one side and hoping Love Island doesn't exist, and now you're telling
Yeah,
me
no,
it
it is
can.
there. You know, it's always,
it's always
so there's
there.
all these signals whizzing around, and there's more and more than ever.
Because I've heard of when people go on ghost hunts,
Yeah.
them using a radio to tune into the white noise
Yes, there's white noise.
and to listen to voices coming out of that static. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
I've heard.
Do you use
of-
that at all?
I haven't. I've seen the where they look at the change in electromagnetic field
Yeah, yeah.
and temperatures, and I've seen them drop an electromagnetic field, drop or whiz up, but then nothing. Because I've only been on a couple of ghost hunts. Because I'm a little skeptical because I think there's an awful lot of hype, and when people actually have had an experience, 9 times out of 10 is when they've not been looking.
So again, coming back to what is a ghost? Going on a ghost hunt, would you classify a cold patch,
It's also
a smell,
I think-
or is that part of a ghost, or is a ghost just if you physically see an apparition? You know,
Well,
is
you
a ghost
talk about-
is a ghost a many-layered thing?
I think it's energy. So it takes a lot of energy to animate a human body.
Oh
right?
yes, we've all got
Yeah.
an energy
We're-
body.
Yeah, it's an energy. If you think about switching off a light, the energy's still there. It's just not animating the light. So when we die, where does that energy go?
energy can't be destroyed, as they say.
So the energy
Dissipates
into
the ether.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Potentially.
it is a fair point, and there are cultures that don't bury people for exactly that reason.
'cause
They
they're worried.
wait for several
So-
days until that energy or their spirit, if you like, has passed out of the body,
Yeah.
and then you're just left with the husk of the body, so that can be buried or entombed or whatever. But that energy body is that important part of the spirit of the person.
And anyone rolling their eyes listening to this as well, for me, this is my theory, okay? This is a theory that I think could be scientifically right. We need an explanation to this.
It's more of a hypothesis.
A
would you say?
hypothesis, yes, I like that, and a rationale behind it.
A very highbrow podcast.
Sorry?
A very highbrow
Very
podcast.
highbrow.
Yes, there we go. So, energy in the atmosphere. Now, that would answer a lot of questions. People, when they see spirit lights or orbs,
Oh,
the
yes,
whole
I've
thing
heard
where
of
people...
floating orbs, yeah.
Well, people take photos with digital cameras, and ever since I had digital cameras, all of a sudden, you look at all these orbs. It's actually an effect from the digital camera,
Yeah,
and
and
very,
you can
very rarely is it an actual orb, and people get very, very excited. I was desperate to believe it was an orb. Well, look, my house is full of orbs. No.
It's dust.
or lens
Oh, and
flare.
dust. Have
Yeah.
you done the video thing where you try and video something in the dark and you get things? The things that are different, I've tried that a few times, and I actually had a strange long line that floated around, moved, turned, and went in the opposite direction of the dust back across. When I said, "Can you show me something in front of the door?" and it was a bit difficult to see, but I was kind of like, "Is there something there?" So there's energy and stuff in the atmosphere. It must take an awful lot of energy to appear. I think atmospherics could potentially be something to do with it. Which
When we're talking about to appear, you're talking about a physical
a
manifestation.
manifestation. They say an orb. Scientists and
Back on
in-
there,
in
there you go.
investigations.
They come up a lot in our podcast.
Investigations, people who investigate that kind of thing, and researchers, they believe that it's the beginning of a manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of energy combining, coming together, which I think is quite an interesting concept. Other people, when they've been in those situations, have felt completely drained of energy afterwards, which would...
Well, we all do that. I mean,
Potentially.
working from just the perspective of sports science, and we all have a physical body, and
Yeah,
as
yeah.
I mentioned before, we all have an energy body,
Yeah.
and you can have days where you feel exhausted and drained,
Yeah.
but you haven't done any heavy
Yes.
physical activity, which has caused you to be worn out and tired
What's the
because of
energy
that.
been useful?
So, and that's what they talk about. You need to have a bit of rest, recharge.
Yeah.
Our energy bodies, if you like, go up and down as much as, or get
Yeah.
worn out as much as our
Yeah.
physical bodies. And
Yeah.
we are creatures that have a positive charge of electricity through us, as we wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Our brains are firing off all the time with electrons, and everything, muscle twitches, everything, all electrical responses. You see, so
Yes.
you can't deny the fact that we work.
No, so I
If
suppose
you-
punch
if you-
people in the face. I can't help it. No, I don't.
if there was some way of literally like a battery, draining the energy out of a person. So if a human being had no electrical energy in them, they physically wouldn't work. They would stop. They would be dead.
Yeah,
You know, we all have that energy.
If anyone has seen someone when they
that is for those people listening, that's an undeniable fact that we all have electricity within our bodies and energy within our bodies.
If you've seen someone who's died just after, literally the second they pass away, they're not there. Their body is there, but they've gone. And I've seen several in my family now, and their whole character, everything is gone.
Yeah, I was there when my father passed away.
And it's literally just like that. Click of a finger, it's a husk. It's their body. It looks like them, but they're not there. They've left the room.
Yep.
So where has that energy gone? So there's been reported cases of, you hear these stories about, I was lying in bed and this woman walked through the wall at her waist and then vanished. Yeah,
that's kind of more your typical
traditional.
So if we're
ghost.
looking at so then there's a couple of theories here. Sometimes when they're like halfway up or they walk through a wall, there used to be a door there when they look at history.
I've heard of Roman soldiers that somebody's in a pub cellar. Reconnecting the next barrel of beer, and suddenly a centurion or two centurions walk from one side to the other, and then it's supposedly later on they've discovered after a bit of research that a Roman road used to run through there before, obviously hundreds, thousands of years before the pub was built.
And sometimes it's like from the waist up. They'll see something from the waist up. And actually, the ground level is higher than it used to be.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The ground level.
So that was all. So what is this? But people recall seeing the same things again, and you get these haunted hotel rooms where people have seen or heard the same things that people are completely unconnected. Where like the bar staff have found this quivering businessman in his white fronts hiding in the bar in the morning. I'm not going back in that room. Absolutely terrified because he's seen something. And someone who is not. Who's completely sceptical to
probably
this,
didn't even know that there was a ghost there.
And had no, because they're not interested in it.
Exactly.
Stayed there, terrified, petrified, tapping noise, things like that. So, with this, going back to centurions, is there also a type of spirit, not one that communicates, but something that we see, that we visualise, that is recorded in the very fabric of the building?
Are you talking about stone tape theory?
Yes, I am.
Stone tape theory, which
is
I've
heard this,
quite
but I don't
controversial.
know
Would you like to explain to the listeners?
Right. Well, there's a theory. There's a theory.
And to Jack.
This is quite interesting,
Okay, so
and
this
always gets me. But then I'll end it with a bit where you go, "Oh yeah, but that wouldn't work."
Well, I have got questions on this one.
So I don't know an awful lot about it, but it's a theory that I'm really interested in. So it's like when people have heard like a piano playing in a room, and they open the door and the piano's sitting there and it's not being played, but they've heard a tune, or they've heard piano playing, open the door, there's no one in there, no piano, footsteps, things like that. And you go, what?
Strange knocks at night and things.
Yeah, but not in response to anything, just that people have heard these things. You have to take out the fact that, buildings retract at night or expand depending on temperature, all that kind of thing. But these things, and where you see an apparition go through the room. Now, those scientists again, and stone analysts, there are links connected to some fabrics of these buildings from stone samples, things within the room that are have the same mineral compositions as recording tape, videotape, and vinyl records as well, potentially.
I saw a thing where they've got like a wet pot, pottery, and they play a really loud sound into it, and that's how you make a vinyl. Is you
the vibrations.
The vinyl is
vibrations,
exactly, yeah. So is it kind of a similar thing with the stone?
It's a reaction. So it's more some kind of reaction, potentially.
Well, I read up on this, that the idea being that the stone in itself has a certain content of magnetism to stonework, and the idea of stone tape theory is that if there is extreme emotion, maybe somebody dying or an event or something, that and take this how you will, but
psychic energy,
if there is a burst of psychic energy, if that is such a thing, can imprint upon that stonework as Mickey just mentioned about, as you would on a audio tape or a video cassette tape, which are basically charged electric particles on a tape, and then when you record, like well, not now because we're obviously using digital, but if you record it onto a magnetic tape, then what the device will be doing is recording your voice or your voice and image electronically. Then the electronic version gets turned into a magnetic version, which then, as the tape comes through, it alters the position of the charged particles on the tape, and then you reverse the process in order to listen or visualize what you're seeing. The only thing I find is that encompasses a linear time. So, for example, if you spoke for a minute or you videoed for a minute's worth of tape has passed through the recording head. Mm-hmm. And so you get to listen to or watch that video played back. Whereas if you're talking about a sudden burst of energy which gets into the physical stonework of a building, for example, there's no linear way of playing it back. If you saw it, you would only see it in one big... because you see what I'm saying. And if you're seeing a disembodied person walking from one side of the room to the other side of the room, would you see them from the opposite side of the room? I mean, what kind of device? What kind of device, or how is this linearly playing this scene if there is actually no way? You know,
there's a gap in our knowledge. In the science. It would explain, if it was possible, the half centurions or the half lady or someone walking through a door where there used to be a door. If it was a recording in time, it would. There's a kind of a logic there.
Yeah. But it goes further than that though, Mickey, because I've read that this keeps going on, but I've read that people also associate this with, for example, if you see an apparition in a forest.
Okay.
How they say it can imprint onto
trees,
but but trees aren't always there. You see, and people have said, it can be imprint on water. Yeah, if you see a lady of the lake, such apparition, but water doesn't stay there. It evaporates. It goes off. So the water, whenever an incident occurred, would not be the same water as you would see the image. So
and there's also the other peculiar thing where people saw there've been a few cases in time over the years. Someone saw, it was in the early, I think it was back in World War One. They saw their son walk across the lawn towards them, and walk past them, and he vanished. And they were like, "Oh my God, he's dead." No, he didn't die at war for another 24 hours.
Right.
And they saw him the day before.
And they saw him in his uniform?
In his uniform. Walk towards them and go by. Now, there have been two or three cases that I've read about this kind of phenomenon as well. Didn't communicate with them, but walked as if going towards it and then just vanished, disappeared. So they were, they passed away. No, they hadn't. And then you think, now, is this power of the mind? Is this a vision? Well, is it a psychic link, or it's all just, this is where it all gets foggy?
Okay, so
I've heard of a crisis apparition, which is when the person who's passed away visits you almost instantly
that's what we're kind of talking about, stone tape theory, that because something has suddenly happened, like you said, a crisis apparition suddenly happened, somehow that gets locked into the surroundings of where that is. But I'm kind of skeptical over how that's meant to work. Also, you see, the other aspects are that you have things. Just the other week we did an episode on folklore of Hertfordshire,
right? Okay.
And it's one of the series that we're doing, folklore from across the shires of the UK. And one of the incidents of folklore that we looked up was a headless white horse, which has been seen to gallop down a lane.
Random.
That's down in Burnham Green. So that's an animal, a headless animal, funny enough. So when we're talking about ghosts, I want to take us slightly away from human apparitions, because people do see ghost dogs, ghost horses, and even ghost trains.
Ghost trains.
So we're having an object which isn't even a corporeal being.
Do you know what? If you had, think of the amount of energy that a train uses when it's moving. If say we went back to the stone tape theory, if it's recorded, if it's not in the stone, maybe it's in the atmosphere of that bubble. If it's the same place it's seen, the amount of energy,
So-
maybe is it atmospheric that causes
Or are-
this
Or
repetition?
are you suggesting, for example, with the train or the Romans, that there is some kind of weak point in the fabric of time, maybe, that you're seeing a projection?
It's like the thing.
It's all a bit
Could a
Torchwood,
spirit-
isn't it?
we have to ask these questions, and that's why we've
Yes,
got you in.
because
you
all
see.
these theories come from somewhere, don't
If
they?
you're talking about somebody who is lying in bed and they see this apparition of half a woman, Victorian woman,
Yes.
walking across the room, could it be possible that that woman in the Victorian times is seeing half a woman lying in a bed?
Or a
I think
bed
Jack's half a woman.
No, I'm pointing at Jack. Sorry,
I see.
listeners,
So
I'm
maybe
pointing at Jack.
there,
Yeah, could it be working both directions?
It's interesting
I
you've
know,
got those
yes.
stories of people who have visited like pubs and things, and then tried to revisit them, and people have said that the pub's not been there for 300 years or whatever.
Oh, right, they visited a pub and it's been...
Yeah.
I've heard of. I can't think of any. I have heard of something like
Or
that.
people have seen old clothes in shop windows and then walk back past, and
What's
they're
the name
saying,
of that book, and then it was a film? The Village, that appears every several hundred years. I can't think of the name of it. Oh, listeners,
There
put it
is-
in the comment. Oh, it's going to come back to me in a minute. It's a very famous film about it. But
is it
I
all
think
part
it's
of
a
this
Scottish village?
same kind
Yeah,
of
is there something a bit wibbly wobbly timey wimey?
So
going on
I'm
there?
just
We
wondering.
ask
I'm just
ourselves.
wondering if perhaps there's other explanations and avenues
Mm.
rather than just thinking perhaps psychic energy.
I had going back to the animals. We had a cat, and he was a year older than me. I was 16 when he was put down. He was 17, so I had not ever not known him. And he always used to sit on our top but one step in our Victorian house in the hall. Stairs up, top but one step. He always used to sit there. After he died, a number of times looked up and for a split second convinced we'd seen the cat. After he died, my mum woke up one morning, heard the purring
So again, there's a connection.
on her bed.
There's a connection between you and your mother here again.
I've also had, I had a cat pass away.
Right.
Same scenario. I was woken in the middle of the night to this really loud purring, and I was looking around my room. I was wide awake, and I could hear it. And I put the light on, and it just started to go fainter, and then it had gone. And I was still going. I could still hear it. It's gone. It was really.
maybe that's
really
a
odd.
similar kind of, I don't know if I'm going to explain this very well, but maybe that's a kind of stone tape theory, but within our brains.
the audio, which would explain like when you hear
Yeah.
people hear pianos and music and
Yeah,
singing, and they
it's a
go
very good
So that's
voices.
you're subconsciously so used to hearing the purring that maybe your brain
especially-
just plays that.
I was
Yeah,
going to say,
yeah,
especially if
potentially.
you've just snapped out of EM sleep, where you
Yeah.
are, you are in your dream state.
Your brain's not fully active. Yeah.
Perhaps you've even been, because a lot of the time we have very heavy dreams. You've probably all experienced where you're having a very heavy
Yep.
dream. You wake up and within a moment geez, that was a really vivid dream, and now I've forgotten what the hell it was about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could it
But
be,
you can sense the feeling,
Could
whether
it-
it was positive or negative,
Yeah.
but you don't know what it was
Could
about.
it be that moment between sleep and awake? That maybe you're dreaming of the cat, you're hearing it purring in your
Yes.
dream, you wake up and it's still there in your head,
Yeah, because my mind's still thinking
cooking
it's
it.
real.
Still, it's just thrown that in.
Yeah, yeah,
But it does
yeah, I
lead me
get
on to a
that.
thing. So we've spoken about
There's lots of
human beings being represented
Yeah.
as spirits that you can't see, that you're communicating with, ghosts, apparitions that
Yes.
people have seen. Now we're talking about animals. Okay, I've got to ask this. Why not dinosaurs? Why don't we see dinosaur ghosts? Because they
If
were on the
there's some-
planet for 65 million years.
I have a theory about this.
This is why I'm
Yes.
asking the question.
Just
I
what
wanna-
I've learned.
We want to know.
this is a very yes.
I'm
We
thinking
want
with
to
the centurions, you said, are lower down because of the
2,000 years.
Yep.
yeah, and that's only that far back, and they're so low down. The Victorian lady's halfway into the ground.
Oh, right. So
a dinosaur's just underground.
so we're not seeing.
Ghosts.
Mind
We're not
you,
seeing because they're too low down,
Yeah.
and also
have any been
volcanic.
spotted on the underground in London? Have you spotted any T-Rex
But, you know,
coming through on
it's
the
like the
Euston State?
volcanic,
Yeah.
all the volcanic
the
changes
Camden
that
Town.
happened in that time, and the landscape changed and everything. You know, who knows?
So if a ghost, working on the principle of, I prefer to call it stone tape
Yeah, a recording
Hi-
in time, maybe.
Yeah.
hypothesis, that if that building is then knocked down and rebuilt, that the ghost therefore disappears because the recording is lost. or you hear of things where something has been built on the site of somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's still there. I've
It's
heard
still
of that
there.
before as well.
Maybe it's in the
So
actual ground as
would
opposed to the...
would that
And
eradicate?
sometimes on more than one floor. And that's where you get you halfway through the floor, where there used to be a floor and the floors have been moved. And
But there
what
is also
that?
the fact that there are reports of apparitions in buildings which are basically made of brickwork, which bricks are made of clay,
Yeah.
not stonework. So yeah.
Maybe it's not necessarily stone tape. Maybe it's like...
I'm just wondering if
there's a record. There's a
Could it-
suggestion of a recording somehow,
or your
whether
spirit
it's
tape theory. Or
atmospheric.
could you
whether
be
it's
seeing, going back to that my hypothesis is, could you just be seeing some kind of glitch in time
yeah.
for a moment?
It's the thing that we can't explain is the fact that people see the same things who are completely unrelated and haven't known anything about where they're going.
The headless,
So that's-
the headless white horse that we did a section on. Many people have seen it, and interesting enough, many people who haven't seen it have heard it. Hear the hooves.
Yeah.
You see, so and these are completely different people, aren't connected.
Yeah.
So
Glitch in time.
ghosts, time travelers.
You were saying about can
And-
they see us? Why can't we see spirits from the future?
Well, I was just about
Or
to
do
lead
we?
into that. Could it be?
Look, I'm asking the questions now. Sorry.
But therefore, technically, you might not be seeing somebody who's passed away. Well, if you're seeing a Victorian person, they've obviously passed away, but in their time,
They're still going about
they're
their
still
daily...
going about their daily business.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if they could see you, maybe they're thinking, "Who's that strange
What
apparition
about
I've just
what
seen?"
about the spirits that turn and look at somebody?
Or do you think they're looking at you just because you
I haven't seen any that turn to look to me. I think I'd be
Have
slightly
you,
freaked out.
have you, Mickey? Have you seen a fully animated apparition
I have
that you would
seen.
classify as your atypical?
You need to say about
ghost?
me and my mum and our link. I saw something.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being linked.
And she saw something too, but at different times.
Is this back at your house? Is it the same place? I
Old
take
house.
it?
This was back, when we lived in Wellingborough when I was growing up. And my mum had said about that she'd seen something once on the other side of the road, out the corner of her eye, like the image of a woman in a flowing dress, but it was all kind of like a beigey colour, and it was the whole thing was the same colour, even the head, everything was just all the same colour, but it was just like an impression of. And when she turned to look fully, there was nothing there. Years went by, and I walked through into the front room and stopped dead, excuse the pun, I saw out the corner of my eye, and I looked straight at it, and there was nothing there, but I saw, walking down the other side of the road on the path of Victoria Street, it was a woman's image, Victorian type clothes. It was more of the silhouette in this beigey, creamy colour.
See-through or opaque?
Opaque.
It's interesting how through human history that people do refer to glimpsing things from the corner of your eye.
It's like another sense, isn't it? Your peripheral vision.
Just on the outside of your peripheral vision. You're not focusing on it.
Well, they do say your brain does make up a lot of what you see in your peripheral vision. It's not actually there; it's your brain making up the rest.
Yeah, filling in the.
Yeah.
So we've seen the
Maybe your brain can see things that we can't.
So we've seen the images of what would seem to be physical manifestations. I say physical in not necessarily. I presume you could put your arm through it, type of thing. But and we've spoken about communicating with the spirit world. So these are we classifying those as ghosts again, or is this or is that
for
different?
Me?
But where I'm where I'm leading it is, you have reports of poltergeist, which are I presume a malevolent spirit. So here we have something which is not. I don't know if you can see poltergeist at all, or how they manifest themselves. But you hear tales of things being thrown around, etc. So this was leading me on to the question of, can ghosts be dangerous? And if we were working on what we were just discussing about, that it could be images that we're seeing through time, I'm assuming that that's a definite no-no. Even with the stone tape hypothesis, that is, you're seeing a recording, for want of a better word. Therefore, that isn't going to be dangerous to you because it's just a recording, isn't it? But where do we come when it's meant to be a a malevolent
something that
thing
can affect the actual.
that
and then
can affect.
we can almost get on to demons and things like that.
I
can't
think
we?
I'm going to shy away from it a little bit.
Yeah.
I just want to.
We don't want to open up
scratch
anything.
I want to scratch the surface on this one simply because it would be great if you came back on a later podcast to talk about those sorts of things because it's such a huge subject.
I don't know a lot about them, but yes, I can do it.
But how does that sit with the what is a ghost? If we talk about those kind of interactions with people where people have said that they've had some spirit within their home that has thrown things around, pushed them. I mean, I've seen things where stories, and there are stories. I can't say that they're not, where people have actually had physical bites on them and things.
Yeah, and scratches things like that. Scratches.
So,
well, the one thing that does seem to there's a running theme with whether it's through the atmosphere where we're picking up things that are being sent messages, or whether we're seeing stuff. Is there something going on with energy,
or is it just people that are actually self-harming?
self-harming. Oh, you mean
the
injuries?
Yeah. Or somebody is being abused and they're covering it up by saying it's a malevolent spirit. You know,
I had knocking and whistling in my current house, which is
how long have you lived there?
My house is 14 years old, and I've been
so
there
it's a new
14
house.
years. New house.
Oh, so you bought it new?
My mum moved about 6 years over the next street.
I was going to say it's not your mum banging on the wall.
No, mum was
Mickey,
a couple of
Mickey!
streets away. Yes, your dinner's ready. If only. It saved me a lot of time. So she's a couple of streets away. Her house is, I think, is about 15 years old, but she's been there nearly 7 years now. Mm-hmm. And the grounds that we are on is the site of an old mental hospital. It was the Northamptonshire County Lunatic Asylum, the Berrywood County Lunatic Asylum, which was then called St Crispin's Hospital.
So this is where your estate is.
Yes, so it's the field that our houses are built on the fields, and the field it was self-sufficient community. So there was a farm there. The farmhouse is still there.
Sounds very similar to where we live, because we've got Fairfield, which is just up the road from us. Fairfield used to be an asylum.
Oh, okay.
And now it's a huge, rather swanky
housing estate.
estate.
Oh, okay. Yes,
and,
we're literally in a... But there's still parts of it that still haven't been restored. They've been there for like 25 years. There's an old Victorian clock tower.
Before it was built, I used to walk over there with the dogs.
Incredible, the history in the place. But I've had tapping. I had a whistle sound from the corner of my front room.
Oh, wow, for actually inside?
Yes.
Not somebody outside the front
No,
window.
it was wolf whistling at
You weren't wearing a towel.
Then I heard someone vomiting. No, into a bag. No, my mum, when she moved into her house, so I'd heard these things, and I'd see out the corner of my eye, I was in the bathroom, like something go past the bathroom door, like a shadow, and I turned.
Sorry, I've got to ask at this point, are you in the house by yourself?
Yes.
Right, so you don't share the house?
No.
Are you aware, do you have a stalker?
Yes, stalker. Best thing to do with a stalker, listeners, is cut off their stalk. So...
good bit of advice.
Yeah, so my mum lives in her house, and he lives in her house. That's funny. Yeah, she lives in a house. No, in her house, she moved in, and she kept she spoke to me, and I've got these tapping noises. It's really upsetting me. It was upsetting. I could see, she wasn't terrified. She didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I said,
she found it unsettling.
Yeah, and she'd be in bed, and you'd hear this scratching and tapping in her bedroom. And I said to her...
You didn't get pest control around.
No. I said to her, well, tell it to go away. Because I'd heard that quite often, probably a scientist, that sometimes when they're trying to build their energy, they're trying to they want acknowledgement, that they're desperate for you to know they're there. Acknowledge them, and then they stop.
So this is kind of Patrick Swayze moment, is it?
Oh yeah, a bit like yeah. She got a potter's wheel out, but nothing happened. No. So I said, say to it, look, I know you're there. A bit like I did with the smoke smell. I said, just say I'm okay. I know you're there. She did, and it kind of eased off a bit, but she's still getting these tappings right next to her bed, outside wall as well. So it's detached on that side by her bed. So there isn't anywhere that could be birds or anything, or a loft space or anything. It's literally scratchy. And in the end, she said, "Please stop. You're frightening me. I don't like this." And it stopped.
Right.
She still gets, when she's in the front room, she'll hear tapping from the hallway, and she's now got a dog, any little dog, and quite often he will sit
there
and look along.
He sits. That animals can be very sensitive.
He sits and he looks along the hall. Blind is shut to the front door, so it's not like you can see things going by. There's no outside lights because there's not a road along the front. And he will sit, and I've seen him stare, and he reacts as if someone's there, and he'll put his head on one side, as if he's looking at something but not quite sure what he's looking at.
What he's looking at. Right.
There's like something.
It's interesting we talk about having our mind open and closed and how sensitive we are to these things. You always hear stories of children and animals can sense spirits. Is that because their brains are still
developing, or just more open? Not
they've got stuff like mortgages on their heads,
not so blinkered.
There's no reason for a dog to be sceptical of a ghost.
No,
because they just see.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
children take everything as they do.
They children often will make up an imaginary friend, won't they? They use their. I look back to my own childhood and think that I could sit there for hours playing games with toys in this whole world of fantasy, and you try to do that as an adult. It's very difficult to do it.
Imagination.
He's kind of like, I'm going to sit on the carpet, I'm going to get these figures out and play with these figures. You go,
well, you know what he does at the weekend.
It doesn't kind of. What I'm trying to say is, you can't work in that same kind of furtive imagination, as you do without thinking about it when you're a child. So therefore, you're probably more open to.
Going back to from the education point of view, because I worked in education field for 25 years now, 27 years now. God,
and don't look at me.
But
I'll be polite.
looking at that, going back to the children's minds, their brains in those first few years of their life, by the age of they're about 3 times as active as an adult brain in those first 3 years of life, because they're making all these connections and their brain is growing.
Everything's new.
Everything's new, and everything they see is going, click, connection.
Neural
click, connection. We'll repeat it, click, another connection. More and more and more, and their brain goes from being completely smooth to being all lumpy and bumpy like a walnut, like a brain that we notice. So they're open to absorb everything around them, because that's how they're programmed at that age to survive and grow and develop. So are they absorbing things that we can't see, that our minds are close to, because of how we've been brought up, from peer pressure, how society has shaped us, what is would be being silly if we talked about that.
Well, just the sheer amount of information as well, isn't it? It's hard to turn that off sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so perhaps they are just more attuned to the phenomenon.
Maybe I'm just a child, and that's why sometimes I connect with things. The worst thing you can do is if you try to look for something, it's never there.
Yeah, you can't see the wood for the trees.
I think that as well with when I've always wanted to do a ghost hunt, because I've never done that sort of thing before.
I think should we drop that one in now? Shall we? We were thinking about possibly doing a recording an outside broadcast podcast, doing a ghost hunt.
I think.
Would you be up for that?
Yes, I would. And what I would really like to do is, something like that. Because what I don't want to do, several people have said, "Come on, let's go on a ghost hunt." And apart from that cell where everything went a bit darker, I went on another one. Nothing happened, and a beautiful place where things have supposedly happened in the past. Nothing happened, and I've got this thing that when there's a big event, they don't show up. But a smaller something. I've always had this thing where you hear about these haunted hotels. I want to go and stay in one of those rooms. Just with, a couple of people, like 3 of us, sit in a room for the night.
He's preempting some of my questions, listeners.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Okay,
so that it's not arranged. Can we stay in that? Which rooms do we know? Let's Google. Right, that hotel, room 14. No one will ever stay there.
Spending the night in a room with me.
Not sleep. We just sit and see what happens.
With our Zoom recorder, yeah.
With our Zoom recorder, with our white noise radio and our electro.
Just see if anything happens that is.
Oh, that's the gallery, listeners. Hang on a second.
Hello,
hi, Zak.
Hello, I'd be up for that.
Hey, is that it?
Zak wants to.
You weren't invited.
Okay.
Zak wants to join in the sleepover.
Hey.
Great.
Right, we need someone who's got 2 bunk beds.
Thanks for that, Zak.
That's okay.
So,
my point was with when you look for something to happen, it never happens.
Well, that's another theory.
But I feel like people who pay money to go on ghost hunts are kind of already preempted. They're already expecting something to happen.
They want to see something.
They want to see something. So the smallest thing that could potentially happen, whether it's a bit of dust or whatever, they will go, "Oh, I saw an orc."
I saw there when I did the one at the town hall in Northampton. The Guildhall, there were a few people said, "Oh, yes, and did you not notice that? And did you not notice this?" And I'm going,
Yeah, I mean, can't things like that suffer from sort of like group, sort of suggestion, where if somebody says, "Hey, did you just see that?" and somebody else says, "Well, yeah, maybe I did. Maybe I did." They start questioning themselves.
Yeah, we're talking like 11 at midnight, 1 a.m. You've been walking around for hours in the dark.
Yeah.
You're going to be tired. We're talking about, signals going through the brain, muscle twitches, that kind of thing. You might go, "Oh, God, someone just touched me. There's no one there." Well, it must be a ghost because we're on a ghost hunt.
Yeah. So you automatically.
I'm not saying that isn't. I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm saying that is also a possibility.
Could be suggestion.
I try and see both sides, but it's real concrete. If there's facts, like going back to me doing the medium side of it, there were things there that could not be explained that only I would know, which makes me think there is a science in here somewhere. In all of this, there's a lot we don't know.
There's an interesting connection I made when you were telling that story about, is it Michael? They said Michael was the person watching over you. Yeah. When you said in your bedroom...
As long as it's not Michael Myers, you're right.
I was going to say. Goodness me.
When you said...
Michael Jackson. Yeah, sorry.
When you all the Michaels are going to come out now.
When you said...
Barrymore.
No, Michael Douglas, he's still alive, though.
Oh, yes, there's Michael Barrymore.
Oh, no. Anyway, carry on, Jack. We're interrupting.
When you said that you had the smoke smell and you told it that you were fine and it went away, could that have been Michael saying, like, "Oh, you're fine now, so I can leave"?
Or was it acknowledgement? Possibly, but I didn't know about Michael at the time.
But exactly that, which feeds into that even more. Because if it was like a guardian spirit thing, every time you were upset, that feeds into the fact that it would have...
And when I was doing all the travelling for work, it was a really, really stressful time at that point in my life when he was supposedly travelling with me. Since that acknowledgement, But
maybe it was just a case of if he was a spirit guide, like you said, all he wanted to know was that you were okay.
So that, like in visitation.
I mean, does that kind of creep you out a little bit?
No, not at all.
Somebody might be
in
the bathroom when you're taking a shower.
No, well, I asked the spirit. Oh no, they'd never come back.
He
He probably did once. They ran.
I could have phrased that completely.
No, because he'd feel completely insignificant for the rest of his life. No, because he wouldn't be alive. No, so sorry. I asked this at the church, and I said, at Spiritualist church, I said, what if they look at us? And people go, what if they watch me when I'm in bed with my husband? I said, like she was on about her grandmother had passed. She comes back, she comes in visitation. I said, would you want to watch your grandchildren in bed? No. There you go then.
But you don't know who Michael is.
No, I don't. But I can't. I don't know that whether when they're there or when they're not, and if they're there as a,
Have you perhaps looked back in your family tree to see if anyone matches the description?
Yeah, we're a very small family, and there aren't. There's none in that.
So the way you
era.
described
I'm the only Michael for.
You described it about pressing on a steering wheel and things.
That's an interesting detail.
Did you own the car, for example, or was it a second-hand car that you'd purchased?
Who, me?
Mind you, no. If you're associating, if you're associating the smoke, then obviously that would have been way before you drove. I was just thinking for a moment, if you purchased a car, that somebody had been.
No, I don't. They'd all been you.
He should have paid towards the
insurance.
insurance.
Posh bitch.
I was going to say.
No, they'd all been you. I've always had my cars on finance, so I've never had.
But, he's getting lots of lifts from you, isn't
he? He's getting lots of free lifts. Yes.
One thing that she did say, this spiritualist medium at the time, was that sometimes they're not in a particular time zone. They just exist anywhere.
Out of time.
So in theory, they come in and out of he might be the same age. He could have died, passed into the world of spirit. Sorry, I say it correctly. Passed into the world of spirit after that smoke event.
Okay. Well, this leads me on
because they're in a different. This is
so. Is this a different plane of existence?
Yes. The astral plane.
The astral plane. We've heard of that.
I've heard this phrase.
Okay. These are good points for a further discussion on these things. So we've got to try not to go too far offline with our original question of what is a ghost. Obviously,
what is a ghost? I don't know.
Cultures from across the whole of the planet, whether it be a sphere or flat, all have spirits and ghosts in them. So
the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Look at the Easter story.
So we are talking something which is a global phenomenon.
Similar thing that we
It's
had
not
with,
a culture that has never met
Yes.
another culture. For example, say
Potentially.
tribes in the South American jungles that have been away from other humanity. Then they have spirit beings and spirit creatures and things. So they develop that idea completely separate, but on their own. So
It's a similar thing we had with zombies, isn't it? Zombies come from different
cultures.
Greeks and African accounts.
Well, I do have one question which might seem a bit peculiar, but it does seem a global phenomenon.
Yes.
Why is it that it doesn't matter? It seems that it doesn't matter what country you're from, but when anybody enacts being a ghost, they always go, ooh, like it's a universal.
Do you know what is really interesting though? You were saying it's global. England, well, the United Kingdom is far more spiritually active with sightings and experiences, unexplained experiences, than a lot of the rest of the world.
Is that anything to do with being on certain ley lines or anything?
Potentially.
You know,
well, we are out in the middle of the sea, aren't we?
We are an island. Yep.
Who knows?
Dinosaurs roaming around underneath Stonehenge.
Yes, they're moving us around.
Actually,
yes.
they're putting a tunnel under Stonehenge, so maybe we'll get some ghost dinosaurs coming through.
No, they're not. Are they?
Right, and they are.
Well, that's clever, isn't it?
They're bypassing. The road that bypasses.
It's the last thing we need to do.
The bypasses, so you can usually
digging up the underhenge.
You used to be able to. There was a lot of complaints about it, but you used to be able to drive past and look out the car window. Say, oh, there's Stonehenge over there. I remember going past with some American friends who went, oh.
Now we won't.
It's not as big as I was hoping it would be. Looking at it, it's like, oh, that's Stonehenge. Stop being mean. But they now they wanted to go. They're going underground, so that you won't be able to see it unless you go and pay.
You can't go over it. You can't go and just that bear hunt again.
So anyway, more questions. Where are we now at the point of trying to understand for ourselves as well as the listeners what is a ghost?
I think that I think we've come to the conclusion by discussing this. We don't know for certain what it is. However, there are a lot of unexplained questions. There's an awful lot more that we need to know.
Right.
I think there's an awful lot more that we're not necessarily going to know straight away. We might not know. It might not be discovered in our lifetimes.
So what we've discovered just in this one podcast is that your atypical image of a ghostly white apparition, actually ghosts. The term ghost can be
It's a blanket term.
A blanket term for spirit.
Paranormal.
So, question. Have you ever used a Ouija board? Because we hear
yes,
this
I
is
have.
not a good thing to do.
Yes, I have. Oh, yeah, I know. And I was terrified of the whole concept of them.
Next podcast.
And I spoke to someone. So I spoke to someone who's a spiritualist, who's been doing it all their life, her family before her. She was brought up, I was going to say brought up in the world of spirit, but brought up in the world of spiritualism. And she said, I said, what? I said, I've only ever heard horror stories about it. She said, I've been using them all my life. I used them as a child. I said, what? Absolutely gobsmacked, thinking, are you mad? We've all seen The
Exorcist. You always hear that people, obviously you can watch the movie tropes, but you do hear stories where people have summoned up evil demons.
So,
good question. I'm going to step in there. So, spirits of people that have passed, can they be evil as well as just good? And you've spoken a lot a lot during this session about people communicating because family members or people want to give messages to other family members. But are there such things as the malevolent?
I have not experienced any.
And is that something that using a Ouija board is more likely to happen?
Right. I asked the question, are they dangerous? And she said, if you disrespect people, they tend to get a bit annoyed. Sorry, I'd usually swear there, but they get really, knocked off, should we say. And you might end up, depending on what you said and how much you wound them up, getting a punch or a slap around the face. So, we treat it with complete respect, first of all. She said to me, where have these horror stories come from? Who tells you this? Apart from the film The Exorcist, where are these Ouija board horror stories coming from? Who uses them? Who's had these experiences? 9 times out of 10, they're teenagers whose parents are away.
Right.
And everyone goes, let's do a Ouija board. Are you the devil?
Oh, God.
That's what they ask. Come forward, and they say horrible things and try and deliberately try and stir things up and summon things up to get frightened.
Right. So it's trying to get a buzz out of it.
Why would you ask those questions? Is my question.
But if we talk about the energy thing again, it's like you're always going to invite that sort of malevolent.
Could anything come
Yeah,
through?
exactly. If you're wanting something evil to come through,
Then the theory is that you protect yourself first. Spirit guides, or you ask anyone positive to come forward, circle me in, you just say some nice words, and so that you say, and when I did it, I've done it a few times, sometimes nothing's happened at the time, and I'm very respectful, and when I finished, I close it and say, thank you, can you please step back, thank you for your time, and constantly, praising, being kind, being polite, thank you for your hard work, the amount of energy you've used, all this kind of thing. I had once where something was messing around and it spelt dead.
Oh, right.
I slid the glass with my fingers deliberately onto goodbye. And I said, please step back and let someone else come forward. Thank you. And I was strong, and I was on the borderline going, oh my word, my head will be swivelling around by 11 p.m. And I thought, no, I'm not having any of this. And I'd never had it before.
We don't want any projectile vomit in the sound studio.
Please move back. And never had anything before or since.
So can spirits be trapped in our plane of existence?
I don't know.
You don't know?
You mentioned about... You mentioned about...
It's the gallery. The gallery.
Hello.
Hello, gallery.
I have a question.
Oh.
Can ghosts affect lights? Because in here, the light's been flickering for the last 5 minutes.
It flickered in here as well.
Well, I didn't notice. That's because I just blink very slowly.
Is it your presence?
Ask it. Just ask. Be polite, and just say, is there someone there who wants to talk to us?
Is there somebody there that wants to talk to us?
Can you flicker the lights if there is someone there who wants to talk to us? They don't want to talk to us. No. Doesn't mean there's not someone there, but they don't want to talk to us.
Yeah, because that's never happened before.
I did notice it a couple of times.
But if it had happened when you were talking about anything else, you probably wouldn't be freaked by it. It's the association, potentially.
Which is kind of what I was going back to.
He's
on
desperate
the
for it to be a ghost.
That's what I was talking about.
If you are there, throw something at Zak.
Okay.
Yeah, lights and things like that. Oh, I had... When I was having the whistling and the things going on in my house at one point, my light dimmed. I got a lamp that had just a dimmable bit, and sometimes it would go down really low and then get really bright again and then just go down really dim. And it did that quite a few times, and I said, please stop. I'm trying to watch the telly and I can't see. And it stopped. And it did it 3 or 4 times over the period of probably about a month. And I said, stop. I checked the socket, everything seemed to not any sense. No dodgy, but no bulbs then blew or anything like that. It wasn't like a loose connection that I could see. But and candles sometimes as well, and there's no breeze. Candles are difficult because a slight breeze or anything in the room can do it. But you've got your doors shut in a modern house, and suddenly one's really goes, or the candle gets really, really tall, the flame suggesting maybe there's more oxygen there, or carbon dioxide could diminish it. Who knows?
Okay, did that answer your question, gallery? Oh, he's nodding.
Yes, he's nodding and sticking his thumb up.
Right, well, this brings us now...
You mentioned the Ouija board thing.
Oh, yes.
You said about closing it. Is there... What's the specific way of closing a Ouija board?
And I'm saying to people at home, don't all go running out and buying Ouija boards, please.
Don't do this at home, kids.
I spoke to a spiritualist who had lots of experience with it. She talked me through it. I joined a group who were doing them. We deliberately made sure that we were consciously focusing on positive things like that. It's not something that you would do if you were emotionally vulnerable, when you're desperate for a message from someone from the other side. You don't know how you will decipher or translate something like a flickering light. If it's in the wrong, you're in the wrong sense of mind. So don't play about with things that you don't understand. Do I understand it fully? No, I don't. But I made that decision that I got enough experience to know when to go. This is where you cut it off.
It sounds like you take it in very small steps.
Yes, and that's
probably the best way to go about.
The best way as well is through laughter. and a drink, but not loads. They say because you need to be relaxed, your mind is more open. Not trolleyed, where you're like, where's the glass? I've used them all.
You're breaking out the spirits before you contact the spirits.
Yes, spirits for spirits.
I've seen people, like, when they finish, they turn over the piece on the board. Is that a thing?
I use a glass. I did have the planchette, the thing that you moved around. I can't find it. Vanished. Very strange.
It reminded me, I'm sure when I was in the 70s, my parents had a board game, which was like a weird... It was,
they come in a box.
It was called Madame Planchette.
It probably was. Yeah, the planchette is the thing that you slide around.
But the game was called Madame Planchette, and it had a woman on the front that was dressed very much like a gypsy with a scarf around her head.
Yeah.
And that was a family game.
But it was Victorian. You see, you can buy them on Amazon and sell them, for goodness sake. Sorry.
I'm going to have to look
Product
this up.
placement there.
Websites are available.
Yes, websites are available. I did a few Ouija boards and had some really interesting results. Again, my mum came over because she was away. You can't ever use one of those. She did actually use one with me, and a friend of mine, the three of us sat round, and I'd said about things she'd been to Spiritualist church, so she said, as long as you know what you're doing, she said, I'll trust you. I'm like, okay. And we tried it, and people are going to be going, oh, and that's when all the noises in your house started. No, they were doing it before then and actually stopped since. So when I asked to stop...
Actually leads me on to another question. Can you harm a ghost by dispelling it? You hear about people doing exorcisms and things. Is it?
Oh, I think some are trapped.
Is it that you hear of people saying trapped spirits? Getting back to you, what did you call it? A trauma?
A crisis
apparition.
Yeah.
Is that it? Can somebody's spirit be trapped, and then is it a good thing to help them towards the light, the astral plane? Or
I think so, because my dad died about 18 months ago, and my mum knows this story, but other people don't. Not many people do.
Are you happy to share this?
I'm happy to share it because it was my personal experience. Okay. Oh, no, I'm fine to share it because it was really interesting. I was like, well, that's interesting. So my dad died it was about 18 months ago. It was on a Tuesday he died. I started to feel ill afterwards. Next few days, thought it was exhaustion. It was the lovely COVID.
All right.
By the Saturday, I was in full fever. And I hadn't eaten since the Thursday. I'd even was virtually stopping drinking water. I was trying to get very, very ill in bed, live alone. Woke up in the middle of the night because it was one of those things where you wake up, sometimes it's light, sometimes it's dark. You don't really know where you are, so it could be a hallucination. My bedroom door was wide open. I looked, there was my dad he used to play bowls, like green bowls, so with his shirt sleeves rolled up, in his grey trousers, and he said, are you coming then? And I said no, and then he vanished. Now, was that hallucination? We had not spoken for years and cleared the air on his deathbed, and he said, oh, we wasted so much time, we could have spent all this time together. And I would kind of like, when I fell ill, I know he'd just passed away, but we hadn't had a particularly good relationship, but I wasn't feeling emotional at that point because I felt so ill about having COVID. I felt so ill. That was kind of in the sort of to the side. I was dealing with all that. But I'm absolutely adamant that happened.
What do you think his message was? Was it that you were so ill that he thought you were going to follow
him?
I
come with him because his time was up? Possibly. That's why I said, no, I'm not. I don't know. But also, he didn't have the greatest of the people who were waiting. He had, didn't get on great with his mum. And I think he would have been nervous about carrying on. And I said, everyone's fine now. Should be fine. Go. You'll be fine.
Interesting.
And nothing. Oh, I had some tapping noises, things like that. Then carried on for a bit again. All out after about 4 years. So once I saw him, then there were a few other bits around the house. I'm going, oh, this is odd. I said, no, it's fine. I said, you're fine. You can go. It's fine. I'm all right. Nothing. Then all stopped.
That's very interesting, and it has thrown another question into my mind, and that is, obviously, when we talk about a person's energy body and leaving their physical body behind, and that energy body perhaps being their spirit, however way you want to look at it, why is it that then maybe we see these apparitions wearing clothes rather than seeing them as a sort of a spirit?
I want to see my dad in his scanties.
Not suggesting to be in.
That was my mum's worst thing. He used to run from the bathroom to the bedroom after having a bath. And she'd be like, for goodness sake, put something on. That would be horrific. Good job we moved.
That's not what I was suggesting about. Can you imagine kind of more a spirit being that it now doesn't have that corporeal image of clothing type of thing, you know?
Do they translate to how you remember them?
I mean, for example,
does the energy...
because, for example, you described your father in his bowling outfit, and you
that's
said
where he was most happy.
You hadn't spoken to him or seen him for a period of time, but obviously he wasn't buried like that or cremated with these bowling clothes. You don't know, okay? May have been, I suppose, but that's how you saw the image, or he presented himself to you. I've just wondered where the clothes bit comes in.
I wonder if they translate as something from your mind, something that you will recognise.
Okay,
so you potentially...
It's another one of those questions.
Another theory, isn't it?
This visit from your dad wasn't in a house that he would have lived in.
No,
so
it was where I was.
So it's obviously your stone tape energy, if you know what I mean.
Is it stone tape when they're communicating with you?
Yeah.
Or is it the next step from the mediumship where you get a message come through and sometimes you can visualise things in your mind? Is it a proper manifestation of the energy? Is it a visitation rather than
a recording?
A recording.
Yeah.
So there is a good point, because going right back to our fundamental question this evening, what is a ghost? What that would suggest that a ghost, a visitation, a spirit is something that is actually different from maybe observing a recording that is trapped in
maybe there's
time.
two types of things. Maybe they use the same field of energy. There's something that triggers them.
You communicated with your father in that instant.
Yes.
But if you saw a white lady walking a staircase, would it be that you couldn't communicate with that image because that's what it is?
But it was Fotheringhay Castle in Northamptonshire that was demolished, but that was the site of where Mary Queen of Scots was beheaded. And there were rumours, I think this is correct, the staircase, when they demolished the castle, they built as a hotel, I think it's the Talbot in Oundle, nearby town, and the staircase, I'm sure the staircase went from there to the hotel. And people have seen, I'm sure it's there's another staircase from somewhere at the Hind Hotel in Wellingborough. Now, one of these two staircases has either Mary Queen of Scots on her way to her beheading, and I think, but I don't know if it's where there's some confusion coming in, Elizabeth I.
Right.
But but it's possibly the Mary Queen of Scots, similar kind of clothing. She came down the stairs apparently on her way to her beheading, and that is recorded. Which, when you were saying about psychological, emotional trauma, that kind of thing, at that moment, was that something that was recorded? But again, that was wood.
Yeah, it was. I was going to ask you, was it a stone staircase or a wooden staircase?
Yeah, but the stone from that castle was used to build the Talbot Hotel in Oundle, a few miles down the road, and staircase went with it.
Yeah, but we're still seeing a linear projection as if you're watching a tape. Whereas I can't...
In a different place. It's gone with the stone rather than, like we were saying, something stay where they are.
Absolutely fascinating. I will honestly say I'm a skeptic, but I am also respectful.
Yeah. Maybe.
But I would love to see an apparition.
I would
love to see something so I could say, hey, there is something here. I have never had any kind of experience like that. But it's not from, I'd like to think it's not from having a closed mind on the subject.
Yeah.
Because I am very open-minded on the subject. I like to be open-minded on all subjects.
Yeah.
So I would gladly leave my mind open to hearing, seeing, feeling something, but I have never had that experience.
Yeah. Maybe from what we've said today, this isn't thought out. Anything, it's just a thought I'm having. If you're a ghost from, like we said, the Centurions or Victorian era, there's no one living at the moment who they can visit, living person that they can visit who they would have known in their life. But whereas your father would have known people who are still...
If they can travel through the astral plane to any point in time, say that was a theory, they could visit people if they could go at any point, potentially. So, like, my dad, in theory, could go and visit me when I was younger, or even himself, and watch. Could we maybe? Well, we won't know till we're there, will we? Should we do it? Let's do one of us now. Do you know what? When my granny passed away, my other granny, about 8 years ago, is it 9 years next year? She was 92. And she was on her own for about 6, she died 6 years after my granddad had. And me and my mum took her lots of places, introduced her to lots of things. And she'd never had a Chinese takeaway before, and all this took her to an Indian restaurant, all these things that she hadn't because it wasn't British. Went to an Italian restaurant, you had steak, well done steak. She was desperate to experience all this, but my granddad's, it wasn't his. He was very old-fashioned Edwardian man. He was a captain in the army. This is how my household's run. So she was the wife in the kitchen, but she had a very inquiring mind, open mind to things. Before I had my own place, we had a party one Christmas, and I said to Mum, let's just have a party, invite friends, she can have some of her friends, some of my friends, filled the house with party and drinks. We invited my granny, she was about 88, 89 at the time. She loved it. She said, I've never been to anywhere like that. She'd never been really in a pub before because she'd heard there were horrible places, and we took her to a few pubs, and she was like, this is lovely. So she came to the party and loved it. She'd all these people, and they're all so drunk and laughing, and seeing people having a laugh, singing on karaoke, all sorts of things. And she nodded off in her armchair, and it was all lovely. And she kept saying, when are you going to have another one of your parties? That's all she used to say every time. She said, when are you going to have another parties? Then, about a couple of weeks after she died, I went to the Spiritualist church. So this is because I was going there for a few years, to the open circle, and the lady who ran the group came to me and she said, I've got a message for you. She said, it's a small lady with white hair, you know who it is. She knew my granny passed, but I didn't know any details about her, no photo, had nothing to go on. She said, you know she is. She's got one thing to say to you. When are you having another one of your parties?
Oh, wow.
And that I just filled up. I was like, wow. She said, there's nothing else I need to say. You know exactly what that means.
But again, that's such a specific thing that no one...
it wasn't even in mind. But when she came, I thought that didn't even come into my mind, because she hadn't said for a long time since, before she passed away. But it was something that she had said regularly. And it was that, this is me.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was probably the strongest thing that's ever come through, that's the most definite.
Wow, yeah.
Well, we've covered an awful lot this evening.
Yes.
And I think we might not have answered the question.
No.
I don't think if we can ever truly answer the question, but I hope we've taken some steps down the path to enlightening ourselves and
we
the listeners.
We have arranged an out and about
ghost hunt at some
Fantastic.
point.
And obviously a lot of this is theory, and I'm still trying to get to the bottom of it, but I know that I can definitely make links with spirit at times, not necessarily very strong, but little bits and little pathways. So that's, spiritualist medium, it's something that you practice over a long period of time. Some people get there eventually and are incredibly good at it. Other people just skim the edges. So who knows?
But this brings us, Mickey, to a little section we have in our podcast when we have a special guest in, and it's called Yes, you're a special guest. It's called our 6-shooter quick-fire questions. Okay.
About what?
Well, this is generally about the subject that we've been discussing.
Oh, that's good. It's
bespoke.
It's bespoke. So this is 6 questions. Okay, just going to shoot from the hip. Answer as you will. Okay.
Go on then.
Yeah, you ready for this? Are you happy to do this?
Yes, I'm happy to do this, but I probably won't know the answer. And you know how long is it quick fire questions? You know how long I waffle on.
Right. Okay.
Go on then.
Timer starts now.
Timer starts now. Okay. Question 1.
Yep.
If you could meet any individual's ghost from across history, whose would it be?
Oh, from across history, I do not know. Oh, Kenneth Williams.
Kenneth Williams. Okay. Would you like to come back as a ghost yourself?
Yes, I would.
Would you spend the night by yourself in a haunted house?
Yes, I would.
That was the one I think you'd already answered.
Yes. Would I be there all night? I'd attempt it. Would I stay there? I don't know.
Question 4. What's your favourite ghost movie?
I was going to say Ghost, but I've never actually seen it. Do you know what? I do like a bit of The Exorcist.
I love The Exorcist. The Exorcist is my favourite horror film of all time.
Although, and Halloween, the original.
Okay. What's the best book you would recommend on the subject of ghosts?
I've got a type of book, but not a specific
Timer's
book.
on.
And I think it's one of these, and you can Google these things as well, and it's local kind of ghost stories where things have happened in time. And you have them for your own county and towns and things like that.
Ghost history of your local
history of your local area, because you can connect to these.
Last question, question 6. Patrick Swayze or Bruce Willis?
Bruce Willis, because I didn't see that coming.
Gotcha. No spoilers. No spoilers. No spoilers. We just wanted to know whether it was going to be Bruce Willis with the twist, or whether it was going to be Patrick Swayze
it was definitely that twist, because you weren't expecting it. And
listeners, we're not going to say anything more, just in case you haven't seen the particular movie.
Well, if they haven't.
If you haven't, well, we still don't.
Ghost.
There we are. Brilliant. It's been an absolutely fantastic podcast. Thank you for coming in and sharing time with us.
Thank you for having me and putting up with me not actually answering your question that you invited me to answer.
Well, we've taken a step forward towards that.
Look out for part 2.
Part 2. Would you be able to come in for a part 2?
Yes.
Awesome. Right, so we've learnt lots today.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of my favourite podcasts
so far. We've done great. I mean, we've had some really good, interesting guests in, and thank you very much for being one of those, Mickey.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes. And that's a big spiritual goodbye from Buzz. It's a spooky goodbye from Jack. And a very creepy goodbye from Mickey Boulden. Do sleep well, listeners. Oh, hang on, let's take a we've got a call from the other side. It's on the other side coming in. Hello, come through.
And on that spooky note, goodbye from Zak in the haunted gallery.
With his flashing lights.
Okay, now we know show. Now we know. Now we know. Thank you, listeners.